Welcome back. And it's time for us, of course, to get into the price of everything. And, of course, there is a price. And we have with us this morning, for the first time on this segment of the program, certainly not a stranger to Morning Barbados, Senator Andre Worrell. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning to everyone. I am great.
Welcome to the program.
And how much does it cost us to have you here this morning, Senator?
Well, probably not a lot, not enough. But this morning, what I wanted to speak about, the program is the cost of everything. And following on from the recent BMX last weekend, and also in Parliament this week, you would have discussed the Human Resource Development Strategy. And a great part of that focus on opportunities for entrepreneurship, which is to some extent also in the National Youth Policy as well. So I wanted to look at that in terms of the price of everything, because well, your program looks at there's a cost at everything, but I also wanted to look at the price at which consumers are paying for certain items, and the opportunities for entrepreneurs to get into the market to offer other solutions as well at competitive prices. And that is what I wanted to focus on.
Well, let's start with the very base. What does it cost for a young entrepreneur to break into a non-traditional business? Let's start with that. The support that's available, the funding that's available, the framework. Let's start there. Okay.
Well, for a young entrepreneur to get into the market, well, there are programs such as the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme, which you can go into, and they normally take you through a training program to make sure that you have the necessary skills to run your business. Well, there's also the Small Business Development Center, which would also assist you in terms of preparing the business proposal as well. Things that you would need to look at in terms of incorporating the business, which is roughly about $750 and plus the legal fees as well to incorporate a business. And but the main important things would be looking at what materials and resources that you need in order to do that. Sometimes it may not be, if you aim a bit too high, it might be a bit of a deterrent. And what is probably needed is more avenues and opportunities for persons to obtain the funding, the startup cash that is needed. And I understand that there's a lot of liquidity in the Barbados market. So I'm wondering, why is it that some of these business people are not, using some of those funds to invest in young people who have strong business ideas, especially that would take us into things like renewable energy and so forth, to provide the seed capital to start at some of those businesses, so that you would not have to solely rely on places like Fund Access and the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme and Youth Business Trust for funding.
Because they're looking at risks and managing that risk, whether it's over a short, long, or medium term. So how do you then, as a consultant, begin to help that person who is trying to manage that risk unravel their mind so that they can actually then invest in the kinds of businesses you're talking about?
Okay, what needs to be done? Well, don't just throw the money after the person, but if you want to make sure the risk is managed properly, you should provide some sort of assistant mentorship and guidance, because once the hardest part is to have it documented on paper. And what most small business people find, the challenge is that in terms of documentation, they don't necessarily have the necessary paper trail in terms of the accounting, because that does not seem as very important. But one thing I've noticed is that if you work with some older people, and these are not necessarily older, these are not established professionals, but these people have a habit of every single thing they write down and they document. And that would be useful so that you can translate that to the younger persons to get them into that habit. Obviously, they use the paper, but a younger person will be more interested in using the technology aspect of it in terms of documentation. But that is what keeps a business alive, in that knowing that because management is all about doing analysis of data. And unless you have that, you can't do the analysis and you can't see where the business is going. So that is what is needed. So don't just say that, okay, I'm not willing to take that risk, but spend a little time with the individual in terms of understanding what it's all about, and provide your expertise in terms of helping them to prepare the necessary documentation and to keep track in terms of doing it. And that is what most young people would probably need in terms of convincing persons that they have a viable entity that they can invest in.
With risks come returns, or one would hope, that one should be able to invest in it at a particular